Hey guys, it's Nick with the RVing Tradesman. We're back out on the tailgate of the Ram for another tailgate talk video today. And today we're going to be doing a video on a debate that's almost as old as cars themselves. And no, it's not what's better, Ford or Chevy. I've already addressed that in some other videos. They're pretty much all the same. But what we're discussing today is rear-wheel drive versus front-wheel drive versus all-wheel and four-wheel drive. And all the differences and things that go along with them, and kind of the goal of this video is to sort of help determine what might be the best option for somebody that's looking at a new tow vehicle. So we'll be right back in just a minute and we'll get started. Okay guys, so like I said, this is a debate that goes back, it's as old as time itself. What's better? Front wheel drive, rear wheel drive, all wheel drive, four wheel drive? And that's what we're going to try and help solve today. Actually, I don't think we're going to solve anything, but we're going to talk about it at the very least. This was a video suggestion that was submitted by one of the guys in the group. His name's Jay. I think he's looking for a new truck or an SUV, and he was wondering what the differences between all these different terms were. We're going to break them down one by one today. So the first one we'll go through is front wheel drive. It's pretty much as simple as it gets. Front wheels on the car are also the drive wheels. There's pros and cons to front wheel drive. Pros, the cars are generally a little bit cheaper, simply for the fact that the manufacturer can build them a little bit easier. But as far as performance-wise, they do better in snow and slick conditions, simply because of the fact that you have the engine and the transmission right up front, and they push down on the front tires, which are your drive tires. Now, it's a little bit of a less efficient design than rear-wheel drive, simply for the fact that your drive tires are also your steering tires. So you kind of have those pulling double duty on the front, and the back is really just sitting back there coasting. You get a little bit better fuel economy with front wheel drive cars generally, a little bit less parasitic loss due to the drive shaft and things like that on a rear wheel drive vehicle. But as far as towing wise is concerned, it would not be my first choice. It would probably, honestly, out of all four, it would probably be my last choice of any. We're going to move on to rear wheel drive from there. Rear wheel drive is, again, pretty simple. The rear wheels are your drive wheels. Like I stated before, you get a little bit better of performance this way, just simply because of the fact that the vehicle's a little more balanced, because you have your engine up front, and then you have your transmission sort of in the middle, and then you've got your rear end in the back, so you kind of get your weight distributed a little bit better throughout the length of the vehicle. Now, the problem with rear-wheel drive is on most rear-wheel drive vehicles, there's not a whole lot of weight over the back tires. Because of that, it's very easy for you to lose control, spin, slide, things like that in snow and ice and stuff. That's really where front-wheel drive kind of rules the day, is snow and ice. Simply for the fact that on a front-wheel drive car, all you really have to do if you start to slide, turn the wheel the direction that you, turn the front tires the direction that you want to go, and slam the gas pedal down. They're gonna just bring you right in the direction that you want to go. It seems counterintuitive, everybody wants to hit the brakes, but it really, I mean, that's the quickest, easiest way to get you back in line. But back to rear wheel drive. The rear wheel drive vehicle, if you're towing, that's going to be your bread and butter right there. Because once you put your trailer onto the back of your truck or your SUV, whatever it is, you're going to be putting the weight right over those rear tires, which is where you want it. And honestly, that, like I said, that's really the best setup. Now, that comes along with some caveats. It's kind of that rear-wheel drive is sort of a double-edged sword. You get great towing, but it's also very easy to get into trouble with it. And I've seen this a lot of times where guys go, well, I'm just going to tow with it. It's not going to go off the road, it's going to be a pavement princess. And then they go off the road with it because they need to go get something out of the field or what have you, and they get stuck and they go, oh man, this sucks. And it's kind of sort of that you teach a man to fish, he's going to go out there and try and fish the Bering Sea kind of thing. He's got the ability because he's got a taller vehicle with more ground clearance to go places, so he's going to go more places. And more often than not, you're going to get to a point where you get somewhere that you get into a position that you can't get out of. It's not the worst thing in the world for most places. You know, I mean, most places are pretty well populated and stuff like that. You have to walk over to your neighbor's house and get them to pull you out, and you get that walk of shame, but it's not the end of the world. But that sort of transitions us into this four-wheel drive, all-wheel drive debate. Now, all-wheel drive is great in snow, ice, sleet, what have you. And the reason for that is because all-wheel drive has the ability to transfer power on the fly to whichever tire needs more power because one is slipping or spinning. And that's all well and good, but it gets kind of a bad rap because it's just not really designed for mud and things like that. So there's sort of this community of people that off-road and things like that think all-wheel drive is kind of useless or pointless or something like that. Performance-wise, it's great. If you want to drive down the, down the coast of California through all kinds of hairpin turns and stuff like that, all-wheel drive is awesome. As far as towing is concerned, it would probably not be my first choice. It would probably be my third choice. And the reason for that is because most all-wheel drive vehicles are set up in a front-wheel drive configuration. So the front wheels are actually doing all the work. Not all the work, but they do say 80%, 90% of the work, and the back tires just kind of push you along until you get to that position where you need more power in the front or rear because something is slipping. But there again, if you've got a mid-size SUV that has all-wheel drive and you have a boat, that all-wheel drive would probably come in very handy if you're taking your boat down to the boat ramp and trying to get it in and out of the water. If your front tires aren't able to grip the boat ramp and get up the hill because, say, there's too much weight on the back of it because you just put the boat in it, the back tires can push you up because the weight's over the back tires now. They're going to have plenty of traction to get you up the hill, and you don't have to get somebody to pull you off the boat ramp. So there is pluses to that. As far as towing flat land down the highway, I mean, all-wheel drive, I don't think it's really going to give you that much of an advantage that rear-wheel drive isn't going to give you. Moving on from there to four-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive is good. One last thing on all-wheel drive before I move forward. All-wheel drive, the vehicle is going to cost more naturally because there's more parts in it, and it's also going to be more of a maintenance cost. That's one thing to keep in mind when you're looking at tow vehicles and stuff like that. Always keep in mind, the more parts you have, the more maintenance there's going to be. But moving on from that to four-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive is not like all-wheel drive. Four-wheel drive is what they refer to a lot of times as like part-time all-wheel drive, or what we consider, when we say four-wheel drive, we're talking about like a part-time four-wheel drive vehicle. And what that means is it's primarily a rear-wheel drive vehicle, and by means of either selecting a switch inside the vehicle or getting out and locking the hubs, if you have like an old Blazer, or I think Ford still used it for a long time up until like the mid to early 2000s, somewhere around there, they started going over to the electronic four-wheel drive selection and stuff like that. But you're primarily a rear-wheel drive vehicle. And the four-wheel drive, when you engage it, is a lot different than all-wheel drive. Typically, four-wheel drive locks all your axles, all your differentials, so they're all turning at the same speed at the same time. That is great for getting you out of a jam. I mean, especially on my truck, if I put my truck in four-wheel drive low, drop it into drive and get out of it, I can walk faster than that thing is going to move. But I guarantee you that thing will climb up one side of a tree and down the other because there's really not a whole lot you're going to put in the way of it to stop it. The problem with four-wheel drive comes into effect when you go to turn the wheel. Because all the tires are turning at the same speed, they don't like to turn. They don't like turning left and right. The reason for that is because your outside tire has to travel faster than your inside tire, because it has to take a longer path. It can't do that if the axles are locked and everything's turning at one speed. So, but again, if you've got a boat, a heavy camper, something like that, you're trying to pull up a hill, back down a hill, something like that, that four-wheel drive can come in handy. Again, with four-wheel drive, much like all-wheel drive, you're going to lose gas mileage. There's going to be higher maintenance costs. It's kind of just one more thing to take care of. And the other thing about these four-wheel drive and these all-wheel drive systems is, guys, read the manuals. I mean, seriously, read the manual. Every single car comes with one. And this is going to get a little bit preachy here for a minute. And if you want to jump forward 60 seconds or so, I don't care. But that book has got everything in it. I can't tell you how many problems I've solved at work simply by reading a book. The manufacturer engineered, designed it, built it, tested it, everything. They know exactly what that thing is going to do, and all the answers are in that book. It'll tell you what to do, when to turn your stability control on and off, things like that. And also, know your vehicle. I mean, when I had my two-wheel drive Jeep, I could drive up and down the roads in North Carolina in the snow and ice that we get. And if any of you guys out there are in North Carolina, you know exactly how much preparation is done to the roads when it snows out. For all you people that don't live or drive in North Carolina, the preparation that they do for snow and ice is exactly zero. There's no salt on the roads, there's no sand, there's no plows. If it snows 6 inches in my yard, it snows 6 inches on the road out in front of my yard. So if I can drive around in two-wheel drive Jeep all over the state like that, there's no reason that anybody else shouldn't be able to do that. That just really comes down to knowing your vehicle and knowing what to do. The God's honest truth is you're going to get stuck trying to figure out your vehicle. There's no doubt about it. I've gotten stuck at least one time in probably every single one of my vehicles. And that's not to say that I don't know how to drive or anything like that. It was almost intentional that I did it. And the reason that I did that in that particular way was because I wanted to know exactly where the boundary was. Exactly what can I go through before it won't go any further. Once you know that, I can get out, I can walk, I can pace something down and look at it and I go, okay, yeah, I can get into this and I can get out. One last thing on four-wheel drive and then we're going to wrap this video up. People, guys out there, gals with heavy trucks, I would not buy my truck with my setup and not have four-wheel drive. It costs me 500 pounds of towing to have the four-wheel drive because you have to account for the weight of the four-wheel drive components. Guys, that is 500 pounds well spent in my opinion. Depending on how I have my truck loaded out on any particular day, I weigh about 8,000 pounds. Okay? If I go out into my yard and it's soupy out there, the first thing my truck does is sink. My two-wheel drive Jeep, the reason I could take it through anything and go anywhere with it, the reason that was is because it was so light. I more or less just floated across things. This truck is not going to do that. That's my personal opinion on why I want four-wheel drive in a 3/4 ton pickup truck. If you live in a condo somewhere and you literally have nowhere to take your truck off-road, I wouldn't waste the extra money on four-wheel drive. Again, these are kind of my opinions on this stuff. But if we were to go through and rank everything, as far as best to worst, or option number 1 versus option number 4, I would say option number 1 for me would be a rear-wheel drive vehicle only. If all I planned on doing was towing. If that is absolutely 110% the only thing I was ever going to do with it, I would get a rear-wheel drive pickup truck and I would tow up and down the road all day with it. It's going to get better gas mileage, it's set up better for it, it's really your go-to. The next one down the list, and these two are kind of tied for second, would be either four-wheel drive or all-wheel drive. I would rank four-wheel drive ahead of all-wheel drive, and just in my personal opinion. Four-wheel drive is not costing me really anything when I'm not using it, okay? I'm not losing any real performance or anything like that. I basically have that rear-wheel drive setup that I want. Now, if you're looking at like a small SUV, like a Honda Pilot or something like that, and you want to tow with it, I would probably say maybe go with all-wheel drive. That's just kind of a personal opinion. It depends on where you live and what your situation is. And guys, I can't possibly know every single situation. I don't know every single climate out there and what all weather you guys get throughout the year. It's kind of, you got to use your best judgment on this. But for me, all-wheel drive, four-wheel drive are kind of tied for second. As far as towing and things like that are concerned. And it really just depends on how often you're going to tow or do stuff with it. If you're towing more, I would say four-wheel drive over all-wheel drive. If it's going to be like a weekend warrior kind of thing, I would say all-wheel drive might be a better option than four-wheel drive. It's a little bit less maintenance, and it costs a little bit less. Last, I would put is front-wheel drive. I really wouldn't use a front-wheel drive SUV or something like that to tow with, just because, like I said, it's kind of the last thing that a front-wheel drive vehicle is set up for. Front-wheel drive vehicles are really just set up for handling, Sunday driving kind of things. You get a little more room in the front, in the passenger compartment, just because you don't have the transmission and the drive shaft. You don't have to have, the manufacturer doesn't have to build channels into the vehicle for that. So, but that's really all I have for you guys. If you guys want to drop in the comments what your thoughts on this great debate are, I'm perfectly okay with that. If you want to drop in there what kind of setup you have on yours as far as your drivetrain, that's cool too. And other than that, guys, as always, stay safe out there, and we'll see you guys on the next one.